The Civil War is over. Survivors head out across the frontier. A vast wilderness separates east and west. Veterans become railwaymen, cowboys, settlers. Conquering nature, they'll unite the continent. Their mission, to tame the Wild West. We are pioneers and trailblazers. We fight for freedom. We transform our dreams into the truth. Our struggles will become a nation. (1865), the Great Plains. Where 30 million buffalo roam. Vast, untouched, a wilderness dividing America. Crossing the continent takes 6 months. 20,000 die on wagon trains. By ship, it's an 18,000-mile journey around South America. To conquer the wilderness and unite East and West, President Lincoln greenlights a transcontinental railroad. 2,000 miles long. It will transform the nation, triggering a tidal wave of settlement across the Great Plains.
The railroads were vital to the expansion of America. This technology connects people in a way that never before in the history of mankind has there been that kind of connection.
America's ancient wilderness meets modern American steel and muscle. An army of hammer-wielding men, Irish immigrants, Civil War vets, railwaymen. Their mission, to tame nature itself. The biggest obstacle heading east from California, a 12,000-foot wall of granite, the Sierra Nevada. Where the Pacific and North American plates collide, billions of tons of ancient rock rise up, crumpling like tin foil. Over the last 4 million years, the Sierra Nevada mountains climb more than 2 miles high. They're still growing, 13 feet in 1,000 years. One day, they could rival the Himalayas. Only a madman would dream of running a railroad across mountains like this. They don't call him Crazy Judah for nothing. Obsessed with the railroad, he sees a way through.
Come on down, boys.
Theodore Judah makes 23 trips into the peaks,
And pig that, boys.
plotting a path across ridges and through mountain summits. Building it will be the engineering challenge of the century.
Yeah, let's mark that.
This is the most magnificent project ever conceived. An enterprise more important to the people of the United States than any other. The railroad will be built, and I will have something to do with it.
Americans love someone who can go through seemingly difficult or impossible things and make their dreams happen.
With Judah's route approved, 2 companies begin work. The Union Pacific starts from Omaha in the east. The Central Pacific from Sacramento in the west. They'll meet in Utah. It will cost over $2 billion in modern money. But the government doesn't have enough cash. It pays the companies in federal land. They must finish in 15 years or lose everything.
We have learned in this country that you really don't get anywhere in life if you don't take some risks. I think America is by far the shining light of the world in so many ways because we are risk takers.
Paid by the mile, adding curves adds profit. Corrupt investors bilk the railroad for every cent they can. A 9-mile curve means an extra 120 acres of federal land. They'll end up owning an area the size of Texas. First, they must conquer the Donner Pass, 7,500 feet up, the highest on Judah's route. Cursed by 30 feet of snow each winter. Avalanches. Tragedy. Here, just 20 years earlier, the Donner Party became trapped in the snow and ate each other. Now, Judah's railroad cuts right through the mountain. 1,649 feet of rock must be excavated, the longest tunnel on the route. Chinese laborers dig day and night. It's easier to ship workers from China than get Americans across the continent.
The railroad magnates said, the Chinese built the Great Wall, didn't they? Let's bring the Chinese in to do this work.
Over 10,000 Chinese laborers earn less and do the deadliest jobs.
The Transcontinental Railroad was built by Chinese workers brought over specifically to work on the railroad, and they were considered somewhere in between human and animal. They were not expected to survive. They were expected to come here and work and die.
7,000 miles from home, 17-year-old Hung Lei Wo swaps a life of poverty in Canton for the back-breaking work on a railroad gang. Hung Lei Wo must cut through granite so tough, a rock the size of a big toe will support a 50-ton locomotive. Progress slows 2 inches a day. To break through, they need nitroglycerin. But transporting it is banned when 15 men are blown to pieces. In a mobile lab, Scottish chemist James Howden mixes it on the spot. Nitroglycerin is 13 times more powerful than gunpowder. So unstable, any physical shock and it will explode in his hands. Howden gets hazard pay. $4,000 a month in modern money. After 3 months in the mountains, he turns to drink, leaving the nitro to Chinese men like Hung Lei Wo. Irish crews won't touch it. Detonation creates temperatures of 9,000 degrees, as hot as the surface of the sun.
So. 이거야.
An estimated 1,500 Chinese die in explosions and rock slides. Hung Lei Wo survives. His son will be the first Chinese American to graduate in engineering from the University of California at Berkeley. Once through the mountains, track laying accelerates from 10 inches to 6 miles a day. Each spike is struck 3 times. 10 spikes to a rail. 400 rails a mile. 21 million hammer swings complete the railroad. May 10th, 1869. A one-word message arrives by telegraph. Done. A 6-month journey across the continent is cut to 6 days.
The folks who had once had to risk everything in a wagon train, that is eliminated. You now can get on the railroad and travel from Boston to Sacramento. That's a revolution.
The internet of the era, the Transcontinental Railroad changes everything it touches, triggering a mass migration to the Great Plains. The Great Plains, conquered by steel and steam. The Transcontinental Railroad threads a thin line of civilization through the wilderness. People follow. In just 1 year, 40,000 settlers moved to Nebraska, fanning out across the frontier in wagon trains.
When in the mid-19th century to the late 19th century, they went out and settled some hostile territory known to mankind in the Great Plains where I grew up. These were true pioneers.
The government accelerates the process with the greatest land giveaway in history. Anyone with a $10 filing fee can claim free land. A quarter are single women and ex-slaves.
When you see the desperate scramble in these rickety wagon trains, you realize that the promise of America was land. These are people who never in a million years would be able to own land in Europe.
Eventually, 10% of the United States will be given away under the Homestead Act.
I'm not going back to Indiana to rent until I bust entirely and have to walk back.
Uriah Oblinger, Civil War vet, claims his 160 acres in Nebraska. There's a catch. 110-degree summers spark prairie fires. Trees can't survive the drought and flames. There's so little rain, nothing grows here but grass. Without lumber to build houses, the new inhabitants live in mud huts, built of sod, cut from the plains. Uriah dismantles his wagon to make doors and windows.
They often had insects. They invited snakes. It was, well, pretty much like living in a burrow in the ground.
I think the pioneers did have it hard. They conserved, they were frugal. The one dress lasted a long, long time.
For Uriah's wife, Maddie, it's a price worth paying.
I expect you think we live miserable because we are in a sod house. But I tell you in solid earnest, I never enjoyed myself better. Every lick we strike is for ourselves, and not half for someone else.
The devout Oblingers face daily tests of their faith. With no mountains to stop the wind, the Great Plains are a breeding ground for massive thunderstorms.
The most objection I have to the weather here is the wind. There's a great deal of it during winter and spring, and being nothing to break it, one feels it more.
Don't go too far, honey.
The Oblingers live in Tornado Alley. More twisters hit this region than anywhere else on Earth. Over 400 touch down every year.
Tell the folks they've never seen a storm in Indiana. Only playthings.
200-mile-an-hour winds spin into a vortex, sucking in air and anything not bolted down. In 1930, a man is carried a mile across Kansas. Fish and toads rain from the sky. The Oblingers hunker down in their heavy sod house. clinging to their newfound independence.
I think that we're a nation of people descended from tough old coots and tough old broads. And I say that with great admiration. They just wanted to control their own future and to have children who could control their own destiny.
Tornadoes aren't the only biblical challenge the Oblingers face. By a river in the Rockies, the end of the world is brewing. A prehistoric species emerges to battle for the Great Plains. Locusts. After devouring the local vegetation, they release pheromones that signal it's time to move on. They grow long wings. Swarms head east on the wind. They join up over the Great Plains and become a plague. In 1874, they devour half of the crops in the West. 3 trillion locusts. Half a mile high, 100 miles wide, 1,000 miles long, as big as Colorado. They block out the sun. Agricultural Armageddon. To men like Uriah, the locusts are the wrath of God. By 1892, half the population of western Nebraska goes back east. Uriah stays.
You have to be brave in order to achieve in this country because nothing's set right there for you. You have to take chances. And I think bravery and fear are the same things. It's just a matter of how you react to that same feeling.
Those who stick it out get lucky. Within 30 years, the locust is extinct. Its breeding grounds in the Rockies plowed over by settlers like Uriah. In 10 years, the Great Plains become the breadbasket of the country. For the first time, America can feed itself. Today, 50 million tons of wheat is farmed each year. But trees are still scarce, and to build towns, settlers need wood. In Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, loggers harvest over 50 million acres of trees. Green gold, a magnet for Scandinavian woodsmen. Between 1825 and 1925, a third of Norway's entire population comes to America, including Nils Haugen.
The pay was $3 a day. You had to have a good pair of driving boots, well caulked, to be able to keep on top of the logs.
There's millions of dollars at stake. If the flow of logs stops, towns can't be built. Logjam, Riverman's ruin. In 1886, pine to build 20,000 homes gets stuck on the St. Croix River. 150 million feet of wood. Remove the right log, and the rest will explode downstream. Rivermen die, clearing obstructions like this. In 1892, 2 billion feet of lumber will be cut in Wisconsin alone. The railroad feeds lumber into the West's construction boom. Towns are built so fast, there's no time to name streets. They're given letters and numbers. The Great Plains is also home to the most numerous species of large wild mammal on Earth. 30 million buffalo. Herds up to 25 miles long race to summer breeding grounds on a collision course with the modern world. The railroad brings a new kind of hunter to the Great Plains, driven by profit, fresh from the carnage of the Civil War. $2 million rifles are in circulation. Over 1 million veterans trained to use them have a new target in their sights. Frank Mayer, Civil War vet, buffalo hunter.
I had nothing to look forward to in civilization. I was crazy about guns.
Mayer tracks 2,000-pound buffalo, easily capable of crushing a man. He picks them off from 200 yards.
If you could kill them, what they brought was yours. They were walking gold pieces.
Hunters harvest the buffalo for its hide. In 1872, they shipped over 1 million out of Kansas alone, worth $3 a piece back east. On a good day, Mayer earns more than the president. Factories use long strips of buffalo leather as drive belts. Small pieces become coats and shoes. To meet demand, hunters kill 8,000 buffalo a day for their hides alone.
For Americans, this is progress because this is a natural resource. From the Indian perspective, they couldn't understand what the white people were doing. But of course, they knew that the decimation of those buffalo herds would change their lives forever.
The Plains Indians depend on the buffalo and worship them.
The buffalo were our strength, from whence we came, and at whose breast we suck as babies all our lives.
Black elk is 6 years old when the railroad arrives. Unlike the white hunters, his people waste none of their kill. Sinews become bowstrings. Bones are cups and spoons. Skin is clothing, teepees, and coffins. Native Americans and buffalo have coexisted since the last ice age. Black elk's ancestors hunted them on foot. There were no horses to ride. The modern horse isn't native to North America. Spanish conquistadors brought them from Europe in 1493. Some escaped to the Great Plains, perfect horse habitat. 400 years later, over 1 million Mustangs run wild. Taming horses transforms the life of the Plains Indian. They become expert horsemen.
The battle cry went up, "Hookay!" which means to charge, and the hunters went in for the kill.
On horseback, the bow is the weapon of choice. In the time it takes to reload a gun, a warrior can ride 300 yards and fire 20 arrows. Buffalo can run at 35 miles an hour. Hunts cover hundreds of miles over many days. It can take 15 arrows to kill a buffalo. White hunters like Frank Mayer use a single cartridge. He aims for the lungs. A clean kill drops a buffalo without disturbing the herd. $30 million are killed in little over a decade. After hunters take the hides, trainloads of men arrive to pick their carcasses. They make buttons from bones and grind down skeletons for fertilizer and porcelain. The primary resource keeping Native Americans alive is gone. Facing starvation, they're forced onto reservations.
My great-great-grandmother, Grandma Big Eagle, was alive when buffalo hunting ended. They weren't just saying goodbye to a kind of a foodstuff. They were saying goodbye to a way of being in the world. And I think for them to look back on that was just unspeakably sad.
In 1889, just 85 wild buffalo exist in the whole United States. The men who ride the great iron horse are taming the wilderness. The railroad will bring another modern American icon to the Great Plains. The last of the great frontiersmen. The cowboy. (1865). The Civil War leaves cities on the eastern seaboard stripped of resources. The country's booming population needs food. In Texas, over 6 million cattle roam wild. Worth $4 a head here, but back east, they're worth 40. By 1868, the railroad spreads from the east, crossing Kansas, but it hasn't reached Texas. There's still 1,000 miles of Wild West between the herds and the railroad. For that kind of cattle drive, America needs a new kind of hero. The cowboy. After the Civil War, 60% of the South's population lives in rural poverty. In search of work, a new kind of adventurer heads west to cattle towns like Abilene, Wichita, and Dodge City. One farmhand heading to Texas is Teddy Blue Abbott. 23-year-old Teddy Blue is the son of a Nebraska homesteader.
My father wanted to tie me down and make a farmer out of me. Never. I ran away from home to become a cowboy.
The cowboy mentality, it's a spirit of individualism. I have a communion with the land, with my horse. It symbolizes a resistance to authority.
Teddy Blue is one of 35,000 cowboys who will drive cattle to the railroad in Kansas. Standing in their way, 1,000 miles of untamed West, unforgiving terrain, and gangs of rustlers. For only $1 a day, cowboys must be skilled horsemen and cattle wranglers. The lasso dates back to the ancient Egyptians. Mexican ranchers have been using them for centuries and passed their skills on to cowboys north of the border. Cattle brought over by the Spanish in 1493 have bred with settlers' cows from England, creating a new breed, the Texas Longhorn. After centuries roaming the plains, they're wild and easily spooked. Teddy Blue hears what every cowboy dreads: stampede. Over 4 cattle drives, Teddy Blue buries 3 pals. A tough job for tough men. One out of 3 cowboys is Hispanic or African American. After the Civil War, thousands of freed slaves head to Texas looking for work. One is a 23-year-old from Alabama, Nat Love. It's his first chance to be judged for his skills, not just the color of his skin.
The guys on the team are as broad-minded as the plains. It's every creed for himself and every friend for each other, to the end.
Many of the cowboys, to the surprise of most of us, happen to be African Americans. Black people have the dream of conquering the imagination just like white people do.
The West, vast, wild, lawless. With herds worth up to $200,000, cowboys guard the cattle with their lives and their guns. Guns are a way of life in Texas, then and now. Even today, Texans own over 51 million firearms.
It's very intrinsic to the American culture and the American identity. We always had a pistol or a rifle. And I think it's part of, don't try to tell me what to do. I'll fight off my enemies on my own.
The cowboy's gun of choice, the Colt 45. Fastest handgun in the West. 6 shots without reloading. Colt produces over 30 million guns. The most popular being the iconic 45. In 1873, a Colt 45 cost $17, half a cowboy's monthly salary. 6 rounds of bullets, half a day's pay. Frontiermen would say, Abraham Lincoln may have freed all men, but Sam Colt made them equal. Cowboys drive 5 million cattle from Texas to the railroad in Kansas, the largest migration of livestock in U.S. history. But one simple invention will soon threaten the cowboys' entire way of life: barbed wire. In just 20 years, 2.5 million new settlers flood into the West. New farms cover 500 million acres of open range. A new battle rages: cattle rancher versus homesteader. Cowboys like Teddy Blue and farmers are on a collision course.
They'd plant a crop next to the trail. When the cattle got into their wheat, they would come out waving a shotgun and yelling for damages.
Boundary disputes are violent, often deadly. One farmer is determined to find a cheap and effective way to keep livestock off his land. Joseph Glidden.
When we think about innovation in America, we often think about the big, audacious projects like the Apollo project. But there's another strain to American innovation, and that's the local inventor, an individual genius with some passion in the middle of the night coming up with that big transformative idea.
In the fall of 1873, Glidden has a breakthrough. Using a coffee grinder, he crudely fashions some steel barbs. His problem? How to secure them. Glidden's solution: bind the barbs between 2 lengths of wire. His design cuts the price of fencing by 70%. Within 10 years, Glidden sells enough to go around the world 25 times, carving the plains into countless ranches and farms, and blocking the cattle trails. The open range is closed forever.
This single invention made possible the settling of the West much sooner and more efficiently than would have occurred otherwise.
Teddy Blue rides one of the last cattle drives to the railroad. The heyday of the cowboy on the open range lasts only 20 years. But settling the Great Plains will mark the end of one way of life and the birth of another. 1876. A century of government policies target Native Americans. 371 treaties to keep them separate, isolated, remote. Most of America's 300,000 tribespeople now live on government-assigned lands, reservations. But resistance is still fierce.
I think probably the darkest spot in our history, for me at least, is what happened to the Native Americans. We came here and confiscated their homeland. I think we have a real sense now of what our part was in that. One that I would love to see redefined, rewritten.
Across the Great Plains, the federal government acquires millions of acres of the Native Americans' traditional hunting ground to make way for the iron horse. The Sioux are forced deep into the Black Hills. As a young boy, Black Elk witnesses the coming of the railroad and the destruction of the buffalo herds. Now, age 12, he's about to be part of the Sioux Nation's last triumph.
White men come in like a river. They told us that they wanted only a little land. But our people knew better.
Gold is discovered in the Black Hills. 100,000 prospectors rush in to seek their fortune. The federal government wants to clear the area. On a reconnaissance mission with the 7th Cavalry, Lieutenant Colonel George Custer stumbles across the Sioux camp near the Little Bighorn River. Custer makes a fateful decision. With 700 soldiers, Custer charges a camp with 7,000 Native Americans. Within 3 hours, all the men in Custer's regiment are dead. The Sioux win the battle, but will lose the war. In response, U.S. soldiers force 3,000 Sioux warriors onto reservations. The rest scatter in small bands. Over the next 14 years, the Plains Indians struggle to survive until the incident that finally defeats the Great Sioux Nation.
Wounded Knee is a great scar on the American landscape.
December 29th, 1890. The last band of independent Sioux surrender beside Wounded Knee Creek. As the cavalry disarms them, a gun goes off accidentally. It triggers a massacre. Within minutes, over 200 Sioux warriors, women, and children are dead. Now 27, Black Elk survived.
When I look back now, I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered, as plain as when I saw them with eyes still young. And I see that something else died there. A people's dream died there. It was a beautiful dream.
The railroad has transformed North America. In just 30 years, 30,000 miles of track crossed the continent, more than the rest of the world put together. Thousands of new towns spring up around railroad stations, one every 8 miles. 5 rail lines link the east and west coasts. The railroad even changes time itself. Until now, Americans set their clocks by the sun. 8,000 different times along 500 rail lines, scheduling trains becomes impossible. On November 18, 1883, the continental U.S. is reduced to just 4 time zones. Standard Time is born. The railroad is now the largest employer in America, nearly 1 million workers. One is a 23-year-old station agent from rural Minnesota, Richard Sears. With the U.S. adjusting to new railroad times, Sears turns entrepreneur and buys a batch of pocket watches. He offers them to other station agents and waits. Bingo! An order comes through, followed by another, and then another. Within 6 months, Sears sells all his watches, 2,500, earning 10 times his railroad salary. Realizing he can use the railroad for sales and distribution, Sears jumps on the opportunity with an idea that will transform the nation: the mail order catalog.
I think Americans are naturally entrepreneurial. If you worked hard and if you had good ideas and you were willing to make short-term sacrifices, you could succeed in this country.
Next one, this is number 1.
10 years after selling his first watch, Sears publishes a 700-page catalog. Now based in Chicago, he processes over 35,000 orders a day, delivering refrigerators, pianos, in 1 year, over 100,000 sewing machines. Using the railroad, Sears can sell virtually anything, anywhere in the country.
What really transformed this country wasn't just the westward migration and the development of cities in the east, but the ability to move products across great distances, linking together what had previously been very disparate little settlements that had to be largely self-sufficient.
By the end of the 19th century, America has 200,000 miles of railroad track, linking the local markets and creating a national economy. Over the next 40 years, the amount of freight carried by rail shoots from 55 to nearly 700 million tons. Resources from the Midwest feed the country's growing industries in the East. The United States overtakes Britain as the largest manufacturer on Earth, soon producing 30% of the world's goods.
The railroads laid the basis for the creation of the single largest market in world economy. And this made it possible for the United States to become the global economic power that it did by the end of the 19th century.
In 20 years, the U.S. population doubles to 80 million. The number of cities triples. 7 million Americans leave the country for the nation's booming urban centers. Where Buffalo once roamed, now rises the modern world.